We boarded the Calypso at dawn, only then realizing we'd been up all night. The storm had subsided, and the first rays of the sun were welcomed by clear, starry skies. I breathed in the crisp morning air, feeling a sense of renewal wash over me as I stepped onto the deck. One of the sailors took off her charming red beanie and used it to wave at me enthusiastically.
Bienvenue.
I made my way below deck, peeling off my damp diving suit and relishing the warmth of a steaming shower. As I entered the cozy dining nook, the crew quickly cleared the breakfast table, whisking away even the slightest crumb of bread. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped me, and I couldn't help but smile when Bastian handed me a steaming mug.
Apparently we're allowed to have this during the initiation,
he said with a grin. I took a sip, letting the rich, invigorating liquid warm me from the inside out. Do you know how long we need to fast? I asked, my stomach already growling at the thought. Bastian shook his head.
I mean, your little detour won't help our stomach's cause,
he complained, a playful glint in his eye.
Why Monastiraki?
I settled into the dining nook, cradling the mug in my hands as I gathered my thoughts. Think about it, I began, my mind racing with the implications of our journey. The Minoans. There's no signs of writing in their art, unlike the Egyptians. And the few clay tablets found here and there, with the exception of that disc, are just recording tools to aid trade and claim ownership. I leaned forward, my voice filled with conviction. Yet somehow, according to the order, they were able to produce scrolls that arrived in Alexandria sometime before the 3rd century BCE. Scrolls that have some connection to a device out of place and time. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. It's clear to me that at least some of the Minoans could read and write, that there must have been scholars among them, and scholarly places that preceded Alexandria. Then you look at their architecture, and it tells the same story. Each palace, a trading center with no need for fortifications because their very function was to host the exchange of goods and ideas. Bastian nodded, his brow furrowed in thought.
And you think Monastiraki was a scholarly center?
I nodded.
It makes sense, as it's located at the slopes of Mount Ida, close enough to Kamos, the ancient harbor serving the Libyan Sea.
I felt a surge of excitement as the pieces fell into place. Yes, a place where the mysticism of the goddess and science collided. A place inspired by the collision of ideas traveling from all parts of the Aegean and Libyan seas.
It's an enticing hypothesis,
Bastian offered, his eyes aglow with intrigue. Bramusa told me that in Monastiraki they had found vestiges of parchment and ink on the backs of seal-impressed clay nodules.
And of course John Pendlebury found something that piqued Nazi interest. You're a genius, Rosie.
He leaned in to hug me. Just then, Regina entered the dining nook, her movement slow and her face pale. The strenuous adventures and lack of sustenance had clearly taken their toll on her. My heart ached for her, and I quickly waved her over. Regina, here, I said, patting the empty space beside me. Bastian, ever the gentleman, disappeared into a nearby room and returned with a fresh cup of coffee for Regina. She accepted it with a grateful smile, her hands trembling slightly as she wrapped them around the warm mug.
Am I interrupting anything?
Regina asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Never, I assured her, reaching out to give her hand a comforting squeeze. You're part of the team now. Are you okay? If necessary, Bass and I will lead a mutiny and raid the kitchen. Regina shook her head, a faint smile playing at the corners of her mouth.
Fasting is an important part of the mysteries. I don't know exactly what they have planned or where we'll end up, but unlike my friend Agnes and I, they seem to understand the ritual's procedure. We should trust them. I'll be fine.
I felt a pang of sympathy for Regina, knowing the pain of losing someone dear. I'm sorry for your loss, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. Regina closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength from some unseen source.
I wish Agnes was here to witness the final unlocking of the mysteries of reproductive freedom, the secret she worked to uncover all her life.
Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of centuries of oppression and the promise of a long-awaited revelation. I leaned in, my curiosity piqued. Did Hathaway really find evidence of parthenogenesis in the Voynich? Regina shrugged, her expression enigmatic.
I don't know for sure, but all the evidence substantiates our theory.
Theory?
Bastian repeated, relief in his tone. I sat back, considering Regina's words. So, you don't know for certain, but you have a hypothesis. Regina met my gaze, her eyes burning with a fierce intensity.
Didn't you notice? The Minoans, they never objectify women. The ladies go about their business with their breasts bare, and not once does the artist seem to gaze at them as sexual objects. There's no depiction of abduction, oppression, or rape, and there's also no depiction of motherhood or children.
She paused, letting the implications sink in.
Where else in the world do you find such a combination of ancient artifacts? What story do you think it tells?
Bastian shifted uncomfortably in his seat.
The last part might mean they sacrificed the kids. There's rumors of that going around.
I shot him a sharp look, and he quickly backtracked, raising his hands in a gesture of apology.
All right, I'm sorry, I do have a point to make.
His expression grew serious, the usual wall of snark falling away.
Imagine for a second that you discover this mighty civilization of yours is actually a fraud, that they ate their children.
They haven't. Don't make things up.
Bastian pressed on, undeterred.
I know, but imagine for a moment that you feel like I do every time I read history books, conflicted by the damning mark of men throughout the ages. You could sink into the quicksand of guilt, spend your time looking back and apologizing for crimes you didn't commit, or you could look forward, reject the narrow boxes that divide us, the past that casts such a long shadow, and work to make the world a little better.
He leaned forward, his voice softening.
I get that representation, identity, and history are important, but when you hold on too tightly to something, any fault becomes a fault line, the very thing the world will use to bring you down.
He paused, his gaze shifting between Regina and me.
Whatever happens in this archaeological battle of sexes, the fact remains that the world is unfair. And I give you my word that history, whatever it may be, won't stop me from being your ally and trying to fix, not the past we can't control, but the present.
A mischievous grin spread across his face.
And if y'all decide to adopt the Minoan fashion as a sign of liberation, well, I definitely support that.
Despite the gravity of the moment, I couldn't help but chuckle at Bastian's attempt to lighten the mood. Regina, too, seemed to soften, placing her hand on top of Bastian's and giving it a gentle squeeze.
You're not too bad for a clickbaity YouTuber. I can see why people listen to you. I need to take a nap, and I suggest you do the same. Our little squad needs to be ready for the adventures to come.
With that, she placed a gentle kiss on my forehead and left the dining nook. As I watched her go, I felt a sense of unity wash over me, a newfound strength in the bond we had forged through our shared struggles and revelations. I knew without a doubt that from that day forward, Regina would never walk alone. She was part of our team, a vital piece in the puzzle we were trying to solve. Exhaustion finally caught up with me, and I decided to find a quiet place to rest. I made my way to a small, cozy bunk room and settled in, hoping to catch a few hours of sleep before our next adventure. But as I lay there, my mind continued to race, the events of the past few days replaying in my head like a movie on fast forward. Unable to drift off, I reached for my worn copy of The Gadfly, hoping to lose myself in the familiar story and find some much-needed relaxation. As I opened the book, 2 loose pages fluttered out, landing softly on my lap. Curious, I picked them up and began to read, my eyes widening as I realized what I held in my hands. It was a letter, addressed to Mrs. Friedman from a Ms. Mercy Moneycouts at Bletchley Park. I carefully unfolded the delicate pages, my heart pounding with anticipation as I began to read the letter.
Dear Mrs. Friedman, I trust this letter finds you in good spirits, despite the tumultuous times we find ourselves in. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Mercy Moneycouts, an archaeologist and librarian of ancient artifacts, currently lending my expertise to the British intelligence's code-breaking efforts at Bletchley Park. It was with great delight that I received word from ELV of your induction into our sacred order. Like many of my esteemed colleagues here at Bletchley, I have followed your remarkable achievements both in this war and beyond with the utmost admiration. Your meticulous work in mapping out the South American Nazi spy network using nothing more than pen and paper was nothing short of breathtaking. However, it is with a heavy heart that I put pen to paper today. We have just received intelligence of a horrific Nazi atrocity against 9 villages in the Amari Valley on occupied Crete, resulting in the loss of over 160 innocent lives. This brutal act of intimidation against the resistance has left me deeply shaken. Crete holds a special place in my heart, as it was there that I spent some of the most fulfilling days of my life, undertaking numerous expeditions and excavations alongside John and Hilda Pendlebury and my dear friend Edith Eccles. My role was to meticulously record clay artifacts, including the most exquisite seal-impressed clay nodules. John, the intrepid leader of our merry band, was tragically shot while organizing the resistance. The cherished memories of our joyous trekking adventures still haunt me to this day. I always managed to best dear John on the climb, but he would inevitably outpace me on the descent. I have made the decision to depart from Bletchley Park and join the ranks of the Red Cross, with the singular goal of returning to Crete and offering my support to my friends in any way I can, perhaps by delivering much-needed relief supplies to the war-stricken villages. I am well aware that the journey ahead is fraught with danger, and the outcome of my mission is uncertain. It is for this reason that I am sending you this letter, to impart a secret that is of the utmost relevance to our order. In the interest of brevity, I shall refrain from delving into the intricate details of the magnificent Minoan civilization that has been uncovered in Crete over the past few years. The books published by Sir Arthur Evans and John will provide you with a comprehensive overview of this captivating world of goddesses and queens and how they are intrinsically linked to our order. However, I feel compelled to share with you a discovery that has remained unrecorded, partly due to a sense of guilt and partly because we lack any tangible proof. During our travels to register sites and routes, we stumbled upon badly burned parchments and papyrus scrolls that were so fragile they would disintegrate as we attempted to recover them. We departed from one particular site, Monastiraki, with the distinct impression that there was more to be found beneath the ruins of a great fire, a Minoan site that had never been reoccupied. I am firmly convinced that the answers we seek lie buried there, and I cannot bear the thought of this knowledge vanishing along with me. I leave this account in the most capable hands I know. If you find yourself with a moment to spare after your triumphant decoding of the Voynich Manuscript, I would be eternally grateful if you could cast your keen eye over the Minoan clay tablets, which are inscribed with a script we refer to as Linear A. To date, we have been unable to decipher their meaning. Yours faithfully, Mercy Moneykoots. 23rd of August, 1944.
As I finished reading Mercy's letter, I found myself consumed by a burning desire to know more about her incredible life. Did she ever make it back to Crete? Was she able to fulfill her noble mission and support her friends in their darkest hour? Had she returned to Monastiraki, the site where she and her colleagues had unearthed tantalizing traces of a lost civilization? Unable to resist the pull of curiosity, I reached for my phone and began to scour the internet for any information I could find about this remarkable woman. As I pieced together the fragments of her story, a picture began to emerge of a life filled with courage, determination, and unwavering dedication to her beliefs. Against all odds, Mercy had indeed managed to return to Crete. Together with her dear friend Edith Eccles, she had infiltrated the south coast of the island with the help of a Libyan fisherman. Then they walked alone to Knossos. There, she delivered desperately needed relief supplies to villages in the Amari Valley, which had been savagely destroyed by the Nazis. But Mercy's story didn't end there. In a bold move that defied the wishes of her aristocratic family, she married a local war hero named Michaeli Seiradakis. She remained in Crete until 1962, only leaving for Athens to give her children the opportunity to attend university. In Athens, she volunteered as a librarian. As I delved deeper into Mercy's life, I felt a profound sense of kinship with her, a connection that transcended the boundaries of time and space. Here was a woman who had blazed a trail for others to follow, a fearless leader who had dared to challenge the status quo and fight for what she believed in, no matter the cost. With Mercy's letter clutched tightly to my chest, I finally drifted off to sleep, my dreams filled with visions of brilliant code breakers, intrepid archaeologists, and ancient Minoan goddesses with a passion for science. And as I slept, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Bastian, Regina, and I, united in our quest for knowledge,